Hey, how are you?
Hello, sorry. I seem to get stuck in cooking dinner and then serving dinner and I completely forget the time.
It's all good.
What was I going to ask you? I didn't ask you earlier today. The PH 360 mastery program is through Teachable, isn't it? So it's not linked in any way to the Shay account. Okay. All right. I obviously had a Teachable account before, and it's I'm just having trouble logging in now. So as long as they're not linked, good.
Yep, they're different. Cool.
Okay.
What did you want to go through tonight?
I didn't have anything particular on my mind.
How are you going integrating after the weekend?
I have to say, the last couple of days I've slowed down quite a lot. And just been more taking time for me rather than keeping busy. I went back through the notes and sort of was thinking about all the different leadership levels. I was trying to think how I can bring more of that out in my current workplace. Which I see possibility for, in that they're going through a little bit of change at the moment. So I guess it's me stepping up more and actually putting my opinion out there around, because what they've done is closing one of the services. They're going to amalgamate staff together. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on there at the moment. So yeah, I just see it's an opportunity to voice my opinion and make my feelings known rather than everybody else seems to be in that victim mode. Otherwise, let me think, what else?
How's it been at home since you've been back?
Well, like in the evenings, we've been sitting on the lounge, the whole family, watching some movies. Gone shopping a couple of times with the kids, trying to get them more into meal prep and stuff like that. So yeah, just not, for me, not being as direct in conversations, just more I suppose coming with curiosity, but not asking 10,000 questions. Yeah, just finding out where they're at. Yeah, I guess with my son, it's more just looking at what's he wants to do next, what's his next steps, without having any expectations there.
Mm-hmm. What are you afraid of him doing?
Prior to going away was not finishing his TAFE assessment. He's done that. So now it's not sitting around doing nothing at home, but working towards getting a job.
Mm-hmm.
So the fear is being let down again, if that's a fear.
Being let down again.
Mm.
When were you let down?
When I was,
Mm.
you asking? Or in regards to him, our relationship of being let down?
It's both, really.
Both. When was I let down? I can think of a scenario as an adult. I'm trying to think of one as a child.
Mm-hmm. What was the scenario as an adult?
Going in for a medical procedure, and my husband said he would be there and wasn't. And he knew that that was important, that I wanted him to be there after it.
When was this?
Probably 27 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And how did that make you feel?
I felt abandoned. I was devastated.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like trust had been broken.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
hurt.
Mm-hmm. And what do you make all of that mean? So he
You're prompting me.
yeah,
Sorry.
he what? Like
I thought you were going to carry on the sentence.
no. Well, like it can be like he is, he isn't, he did, he didn't. Like it's just he. We're starting with the projection as the frame.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. He didn't come into it first in my head.
What first came in?
That others can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm. And when did that first start?
I don't know. I don't have any other memory come up or a gut feeling or anything. Don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be trusted.
And if other people can't be trusted, then what?
Logically, my head says I can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm. And then what?
Then I can't back myself.
And if you can't back yourself, then what?
Then I don't have certainty.
And what happens when you don't have certainty?
I feel like a flailing fish.
And when you feel like a flailing fish, then what?
I have no direction.
And what does that mean if you have no direction?
I'm unfocused. I procrastinate.
And if you're unfocused, then what happens? And what does that mean about you if you procrastinate and you're unfocused?
I'm not efficient and effective.
And what kind of person is not efficient and ineffective?
Someone who doesn't have their their stuff together.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What are you trying to prove to the world then?
I'm perfect.
That you're perfect?
Mm. Or I look like I am.
Mm-hmm. And then what does that create?
Unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm. Why do you need to be perfect?
If I knew that, this would have been solved years ago, Cody. Why do I need to be perfect? I think it's just part of people pleasing.
Mm-hmm. But nobody's perfect, right?
No, nobody is.
So the story goes.
I don't know whether it relates to being a good girl. That's what comes up in my head.
Mm-hmm. So who did you have to be a good girl to?
I think definitely my dad.
Mm-hmm. And if you want a good girl, then what?
Say that again.
And if you weren't a good girl, then what?
What popped up in my head was not likable.
What's deeper than like?
Mm.
Sorry?
Not lovable.
Oh, it's surprised. Mm. So your husband said he would be there after medical treatment. He wasn't there. He felt abandoned, devastated, trust broken, hurt, disappointed. What do you make that mean about him as a person?
That he didn't keep his word.
And what kind of person doesn't keep their word?
Someone who's a liar.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of person is a liar?
Um,
We're looking for like derogatory wording here.
my brain's searching.
What's your body say?
Someone who's a liar. Disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Scumbag is what comes into my head.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Scumbag. Right. So why still married to a scumbag?
Some days I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about all that experience now? So when you think back to that time, what comes up for you?
What comes up is that I feel like I've maybe half forgiven him, not fully.
Mm-hmm. Now, if a client said to you, "I've half forgiven someone," what would you say to them?
That's not going to move you on, is it?
So what plays out is you've intellectually understood that he was doing the best that he could with the resources he had, or some narrative.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Not even that. Okay.
Nah, I don't like that cliched statement.
So why don't we forgive people?
Because then we've got to forgive ourselves. No. Hmm. Because we are not giving permission to ourselves to move on.
Why do we do that though?
Because it's good to hold a grudge.
Mm-hmm.
You get something out of it, don't you?
Mm-hmm. So the question is then, what do you get out of it?
It's like there's a little piece of uncertainty there.
What do you mean by that?
Not fully trusting.
What do you mean by that?
There's room for doubt.
Doubt of what?
To be like 100% total trusting, accepting, loving.
What's that got to do with anything?
That's how to me, I see that in our relationship, that's where that little bit of doubt is. What was the question?
Just explain that to me more about that little bit of doubt.
I suppose it's like being not 100% committed.
Half pregnant.
Sorry?
Half pregnant.
I wish. I don't know. That's the meaning I've given it, I think.
But is commitment something that can be half?
No.
Mm-hmm. And what's the story that creates that half commitment, which is not commitment?
I don't know. Oh my gosh. My mind's searching for evidence. Like I think about my kids and I'm totally committed to them.
Cool. So let's backtrack. So why don't we forgive people?
Why don't we forgive people?
So by not forgiving people, we give ourselves permission to resent. And what's that a mask for? What's that to cope with? What's the strategy?
So that's masking good old anger, isn't it?
Well, that's still in the expression of the resentment. So it's still in the flavor of that, like anger, resentment, hatred. We can have any of those here. But why do we do all of that? So the reason why we don't do that is because ultimately then we actually have to go through the feeling of the grief.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a projection mechanism of resentment for us to not actually feel what's going on in our body in that instance, which is really just the death of an identity that we've created. Or in most instances, so it's a death of who that person was, or death of our identity in relation to that person. So ultimately what's generally occurred is like what's playing out in that instance is you put your partner on the pedestal. And where does that put you?
In the pit.
Puts you in the pit. And then he has his first opportunity to be able to remain on that pedestal, and he has the first opportunity to continue that process. And that doesn't occur. And you're like, well, fuck you. I'm going to hold on to this for the next 27 years. So he goes to the pedestal, doesn't live up to the pedestal, So instantly, I don't want to go through the feeling of no longer seeing him as the perfect human being that he was. So I'm just going to instantly start to create this story around all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the driver of all of that? Just to fast track it, what's your core wound? So what will play?
Nothing coming in my head. Connector.
I'm not lovable. So the core wound instantly becomes filtered through that. I'm not lovable. And what's going to happen is I'm going to consistently look for ways to be able to prove my story that I'm not really lovable. And I create disconnection mechanisms to be able to perpetuate that, because deep down I believe that I'm unlovable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to create all of these strategies to avoid me actually having true connection. Even the connection that I have is only a strategized connection. It's not true vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Because vulnerability lives in the uncertainty, and vulnerability precedes emotion.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, fuck that shit. I don't want to be in the uncertainty of it and the vulnerability of it. I don't want to be seen in that. I want to be seen to have it all together. I want to be seen to have it perfect, because then I'll be loved. And yet then the irony is you actually want to be seen for who you truly are. And at the same time, that's your greatest fear.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You got it.
Yeah. And then all we see there is just a strategy to be able to hold that entire system in place. And your husband becomes at the effect of that entire story only for 27 years. Which is ultimately what we all do. We instantly start to create stories around the people in our lives to virtually play out what our wounds are. Doesn't actually, like, it really doesn't matter. The funny part of it, and the weird part, like, funny / fucked up part of it is, doesn't really matter what people do. We still like play out our wounds on them regardless of what they do. So it doesn't necessarily matter whether he turned up that day or not. You'd still find another example of that to be able to play out that wound.
Right.
And the same
that
thing
makes
happens
it so much better, Cody.
And this happens in childhood as well. So it's like the good news is, as parents, you like, it's one of those things where you can't really fuck it up, because what's going to happen is people are going to experience their wounds regardless, because that's the flavor of what their life is.
So if you work on your tribal cycle and how you've been brought up, if you were a new parent who was more aware.
What's the question behind the question?
You're saying then that your genetic predisposition will still be to play out your wounds.
Biologically, every single body has inherent strengths, weaknesses, and wounds. So regardless of how you are as a parent and how well you parent, they will still go through the experience of those because that's what their life's journey is for this lifetime.
Okay.
Now, yes, 100% true. And the natural question, like after that, is like, does it really matter then how I parent?
Yes.
And the answer is yes. The whole point is there are certain experiences that your children need to go through, and you will also be a core component of how you shape their life, of how willing they are to actually do the work on what those core wounds are and what their experience of this life actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And they will still have the same flavor of it regardless. So paradoxically, you don't impact them at all, and yet in every way you impact them.
We talked about paradoxes over dinner tonight.
How did that go for you?
Well, actually, I asked my son for a paradox, and he came up with, this sentence is not true.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Love it. Paradoxes at dinner, eh? It's always an interesting one. So the work. So is it true that you're abandoned?
In that moment.
Can you prove to me without a story that you're abandoned in that moment?
Physically, he wasn't there.
Okay, can you prove to me that that is abandonment?
Abandonment. No.
Okay. And what's the impact of believing the story that you're abandoned?
What's the impact? Boy.
What's the impact of the story that you're abandoned on your relationship with your husband?
I get to apply that same thinking to other scenarios.
And what's that thinking?
Well, like when he would walk out of the house, go to work, and I was still dealing with issues with the kids, I saw that as being abandoned.
Mm-hmm. So,
but he still came home at the end of the night. So in reality, no, I was not abandoned.
Mm-hmm. And what's the impact on your relationship in terms of the tension that they created and the conflict that they created based on the abandonment story?
definitely I got to resentment stage.
Mm-hmm.
Big time.
Mm-hmm. So who would you be without that story then?
I would be a more understanding, collaborative partner.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the story of he abandoned you, how is the opposite true? What's the turnaround of that? He abandoned me.
I abandoned me.
Mm-hmm. Is that partially true? Just as true? Is there any truth in that statement?
No,
Okay.
I want to say no.
Yeah. What about the part of you that felt hurt in that? Is that part being abandoned by you creating a projection over the top of that, of him abandoning you?
Probably.
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, it's allowing that story to continue.
And where in your experience have you abandoned you? So just think about any time that you're in escape.
Mm.
Because every time that we're in escape, we're abandoning ourselves.
I had come up in my head then. I went through an unfair dismissal case. But now I look on it that I stood up for myself in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that that came up.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about that experience. Filtering through abandonment.
Essentially was running a after school care centre, and one of the kids decided to leave the centre and walk away from the centre, and so I sent a staff person to go after them, and that staff person had said that the mother had come and taken the child from him, when in fact that didn't happen. And so he came back to the centre with no child, and the parents arrived, and then the kid walked into the centre. And so they essentially said I had not done my job. And so that was instant dismissal there and then on the spot by committee. So one committee member. So for me, that abandonment was I had no right of reply. And then I had a parent who was a lawyer said, we're happy to take the case for you and fight against this. And the exact same scenario happened with the assistant director a week later with the same kids. And so in the end, I won the unfair dismissal. But going through that was just before I was getting married. So I felt, I guess, totally abandoned by that committee. It was the parents who were prepared to stand up and say, no, this is how it is. And at no point did I ever get to do a right of reply.
Mm-hmm. And how much resentment do you hold against not being able to do a right of reply?
At the time, it was huge.
Mm-hmm. What about now?
I feel like I've parked it.
Yep, not completed, parked.
Mm.
Like even every single time that you say right of reply, completely different energy. So what we start to see is the experience of the story playing out of the people that are meant to be there for me the most always abandon me. It's like the committee, they should have been there for me.
Yep.
My husband, he should have been there for me.
I'll accept that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Now, my instant thought processes around it is like, what are you really getting out of outsourcing your power like that to everyone else?
I get outsourcing. It just perpetuates the story of me feeling weak. Yeah.
Mhm. So the shift then becomes not outsourcing your power.
Hmm.
Because every time you're outsourcing the power, you're really just putting yourself in the pit.
Wallowing in that pit.
That's it. It's fun down there, isn't it?
Oh my God. I don't want to be in the pit. I put myself in the pit.
Mhm. And how do we not put ourselves in the pit or on the pedestal?
It's being a bit more forgiving of myself.
Yeah, we can play that direction. What we're really looking at though is like the pedestal and the pit is above and below.
Mm-hmm.
And with above and below, we instantly start to filter it through above being better and below being worse, rather than seeing it just horizontally.
Yep.
And they're just at different points throughout that dance of the experience. So when we start to see it as that dance, there's no real above and below in a dance. It's just the expression of different expressions of where people are at in the different expressions on the dance floor.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are at different stages of that dance. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily better or worse or above or below. It's just the same playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see it as just different positions, then we no longer see it as above or below the pedestal or the pit. Then we no longer define what our worth is based on being on the pedestal, of being high worth and low worth in the pit.
I get it here. I don't
Yeah.
get it here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the not getting it here is just a component of the unwillingness to experience all of the feeling, emotion, pain of actually going through the experience of truly forgiving. I mean, instantly, that's just the wall. The wall was put there so that we didn't experience all of those things, because inherently that creates the uncertainty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just becomes the true expression of that vulnerability. Because the disconnection strategy that you create is one of, I'm not going to forgive. That way I don't have to actually be truly vulnerable. I've always got that little bit that I can just hold back.
Yeah.
And then I've got that little crutch that I hold on to of that one story 27 years ago.
Geez, that's a bloody good strategy.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
And when we can actually start to appreciate that strategy for the relationship that's actually created for you, then we actually become okay with it as well.
Mm.
Because when we come from a place of love of our strategies, then they can actually evolve. When we come from a place of shame of our strategies, it just perpetuates them.
Mm. Yep. They're going to kick that wall down.
No, you don't have to. You can still love that strategy. Eventually, like as soon as you start to kick that wall down, it's almost like an oppositional energy to it. What if you could like love every aspect of that wall? Because part of it is like you have to get why you created it.
Mm.
And we all create our disconnection strategies for the same reason. Just fear. Fear of actually truly experiencing our core wound. So we create a disconnection strategy to ensure that we don't actually ever experience that. So the things that you get to get, you get to get why you create that wall. And it's also getting that you get why your husband wasn't there that day. Now, the next part that you get to get is why you laugh through the discomfort.
I'm laughing because his reason for not being there was quite a valid reason.
Yeah, but you don't get it.
Well, he was in the wrong place.
Hmm.
I
you
guess
don't-
I'm laughing at myself that I've held that being in the wrong place as intentional.
And the point is you don't get it. You get it, but you don't get it through your body.
Okay. Yep.
So that's why I'm like, you got to get that you get it. So it's both intellectually and in your body.
Mm.
And you can get it that it was in the wrong place. And what plays out is you're actually truly vulnerable. And the result was you had the perception of being hurt in that vulnerability. So that's never, ever gonna happen again.
Yeah, get that.
Mm-hmm. And what about getting that you can't actually be hurt by people? We only hurt ourselves on them.
Mm.
So it's getting to the point of getting that you're actually vulnerable with yourself and what you wanted. Externally. And when you didn't get what you wanted externally,
Yep.
so you're in there
Mm-hmm.
in the subtle body there, in the sensation of what was holding that in place. And then you're with that. And then it got too much. And then you laughed.
Yep.
So the way that you get it, is by being with the experience in the subtle body and going through the pendulation of the intensity of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going through all the experiences of getting it up here, and then it comes down here and into like the physical body. It's just a representation of what's occurring energetically on the subtle body as well. So highly recommend watching this back and just watching how your body responded when you went into that. How your
Mm-hmm.
breathing instantly shifted and you instantly started to create awareness around just the sensations in your body and being with that and the subtle sensations and the subtle vibrations of what was actually going on and the completing of that. And then the awareness of like, this is uncertain. This is being vulnerable with me and myself again. Now I'm going to laugh to return back into my body, into my body, out of my subtle body, into my mind.
Yep. Yep.
Which is ultimately just what we all do.
And then the thinking process goes.
Yeah. So what we need you to do is just consistently go through the subtle body work of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's starting with the experience with your husband.
Processing that. When you say starting with that, you mean just processing that experience?
Yeah, so processing is mental.
Embodying that experience.
It's just being with the sensations of the subtle body in that experience.
Mm.
So we could call that a process, and most processing is done in the mind. So we're really looking at being with the sensations of it because that's what's occurring in the subtle body.
Mm-hmm.
Because process also generally creates an endpoint or an outcome of it rather than being with it.
Okay.
But there's no end point in terms of somewhere to get to. And the irony is that as we go through the pendulations, there is an endpoint, but that's not our focus.
Mm.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Cool. Give me your homework.
Thank you.
That's good. Bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
Build one. So in a coaching context, like part of the experience there is like allowing people to start to unpack things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So technically I could have just gone from the first round of 27 years ago, these are how I felt. It's like, well, how does that relate to you being unlovable?
Too big a bridge to gap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more work that you do with people, the faster you can bridge that gap. And sometimes it's about just going layer by layer down.
Mm.
Like you're probably going to know what it's going to be. And at the same time, you're just waiting until they come up with it. Yeah.
The other thing I'm thinking I need to do is to do the embodiment work looking in a mirror.
Which
Does that
embodiment
work?
work? Which embodiment
Well,
work? So, like, in answer to your question, when we think about subtle body work, it's not going to work in a mirror because it's just being with the sensations. We're not actually really being with the sensations of sight as much.
mm-hmm.
In terms of doing embodiment work, there is benefit to doing some forms of that in a mirror. More somatic processes and things like that, especially if there's body image issues, being seen issues, yeah, which everyone has.
Okay. I just more thinking I pick up on other people's changes, but I don't have that same level of awareness when I'm going through them.
So again, when we're going through something, it's like having that automatic feedback loop visually doesn't necessarily help. Just creates more of a distraction.
Okay.
So it's creating that deep level of awareness of what's actually occurring in your subtle body. So what we look at in that instance is
But see, if you didn't call me out on my laughter, that would subside.
It's just another coping mechanism. Like if you're getting like into the depths of coaching and you really need to get a breakthrough with someone, all that you do is you basically just highlight everything as a coping mechanism to them until they get to the point of crying. Which is not, it's not a easy strategy to do with people. And sometimes if you're in a deep transformational space and you're committing to getting results for people in terms of transformation, like not necessarily the leadership intensive, if that comes up at the leadership initiative, the second version of that, if that starts to come up, it's just like I will instantly break through every single strategy that people are playing out just to get to the core of it so that I know that I can have that transformation. So yeah, it's not necessarily comfortable. Like even as the coach, and it's understanding the times and the places for people to highlight what people's escape mechanisms actually are, and laughing is just a common one. And it's like, okay, when we're not getting to a point where it's getting to enough of being with the sensation, that I need to call that out.
Yeah.
Because it's just unconscious for people most of the time. Like people drinking water, people, like everything is ultimately just, in most instances, avoiding the discomfort, and that's okay. It's ensuring that as coaches, what we're doing is we're expanding out slightly what their comfort zone is. So they normally go, okay, well, this is normally when I go for water. It's like, now I'm going to call them on that so they can actually just sit with it just that little bit more.
Yeah.
You kind of really need to be with people in person to be able to go to the full depth of it, because it's like, this is a deep tangent. It's like the energetics are different in person, that they feel safer to be able to go there, that they just release just that a little bit more.
Okay.
So when it's through a screen, they understand that there's this disconnect energetically, that for them to fully get into the depths of it, it's like that last little bit into the full depth of transformation is just held on to just that little bit more through a screen. So as I said today, it's like you're really looking at creating the capacity to be able to get through some depths in terms of how your business is going to work with one-to-ones, to be able to get them to the point where they're open-ish when they get to the in-person experience, and then it's like crack, and then integration after. So yeah, that's a side note in coaching.
All righty, thank you.
No worries. So no session next week. I might do one on Monday night or something. So I'll be away in Bali for a retreat.
Do you get to speak?
Yeah, I think I get to speak. It's an embodiment retreat.
Okay.
So yeah.
You're not in silence again.
No. This is like way more intense. So it's gonna be fun.
Can't wait to hear about it.
It's gonna be good. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, and it just hasn't lined up. And then yeah, just stars aligned.
And is it mixed or is it just men?
Mixed.
Mixed.
And so, yeah, like one of my clients is going as well from one of my other groups, and then a lot of other people that like that are kind of in my sphere. Like I've done some transformational work with a few other people, so it'll be good. And it's one of my clients that's running it, so they're a couple of my like 7-figure business owner clients. So excited to have it.
Mm-hmm.
They run retreats in Bali, but then they also do an Egypt one as well. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy.
Oh well. I'll see how I go. I might run one Monday night. I just got to see if I can get access to the internet Monday night and just run like a group one for everyone, because I'll be out of action from Tuesday to Tuesday. So
Okay. All right. All good.
all right.
Thank you.
No worries. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Enjoy your subtle body work.
See ya. I will.
All right. See ya.